everybody, welcome back to Making Stuff with Mrs. Baroody. I'm Mrs. Baroody, and today we're going to be talking about journaling and doodling. So, before I lose you, you don't have to be writing a journal entry with your feelings. This is more about showing who you are in a creative way. So for me, I wouldn't necessarily be writing a journal entry about my thoughts and feelings, but I'd be writing a list of projects that I want to do or making a recipe look really cool. It's more about putting you on a page using color and line. Things that we've already done this school year. Or if you've had me in the past, we've done it before. So we're going to have several examples, and they're just there to inspire you. Okay? Let's get started. All right, ladies and gents, time for some examples of how to doodle in a journal, or to make lists, or just to make your life a little bit more organized and creative at the same time. On our Google page, you will find a document with some examples that I found on the internet of some borders you could do, some banners, and then just some ideas on some little graphics you could make as well. Those of you that are nervous about this, please don't be nervous. There is lots of room for creativity, and no matter what you do, it's going to look good, okay? So if you look at my example of my journal doodles that are easy, fun, and creative, this only took me a few minutes. It's just on a basic note card. I used a Sharpie pen, I used some of my colored pens that I have, and a pencil. That is it. When you are doing your journal doodles, whether you're writing a journal entry, whether you're making a list, make sure that you're using a pencil first if you're still nervous about it. A pencil and eraser are always going to be those tools that I use in practically every piece of artwork that I make. Even if it's a sculpture, I'm usually drawing it first. So a pencil and eraser, things that you definitely want to have around. Other things that might be handy is a regular old fine tip Sharpie pen or a generic equivalent. And I also really like these micron pens. I got these at a craft store. You can get them almost anywhere. And you can see they have these numbers on them, and that tells me how big their tips are. So when you look at the 2, that's that big. And when you look at the 005, that is teeny tiny, right? So these come in different sizes, and you'll see in one of my later examples that I utilize these to achieve some really small little details. If you don't have these, that's fine. If you don't have a Sharpie pen, a regular pen would do. Even if you're just using pencils and crayons, it's going to look great. I also use some of my colored pens that are kind of a fine tip, and then regular Sharpies as well for my examples. But again, if all you have is a pencil, still doable. So one of my examples I did, and this is a made-up schedule, this is not what my Mondays look like. So this is my Mondays schedule. And I did a little bit of a banner up here with my pencil, then traced it with my Sharpie marker. My Mondays wasn't centered, so I put a heart there because I should love Mondays more. It's hard to love Mondays, so maybe that'll help me out. And then over here for my bulleted list, instead of making a little checkbox like I did on my journal doodles, I made a little swirly thing instead. And then I color coded. So if I was going to have more things on this list, I might continue my pink, purple to keep myself organized. And then I just did a little squiggly arrow thing to separate my list to some notes. So don't forget dinner. I sometimes forget to get things out for dinner. That part is true. And then I left a couple spaces blank. So I might add on there, pick up cat from vet. And I could do it in pencil first, but because I already have those lines there, I can kind of eyeball it and make sure that it's lined up. So pick up cat. And then I might write vet. All right, and I'm keeping these blue, so those are the notes. Purple and pink are the list. So that's one example of a way I could do journaling. Now, I don't necessarily write journal entries. So for me, I might be making a list for dinner. And this is where those tiny pens come in handy. Look at those tiny little foods. I even wrote soy sauce really small on there. So for this, I wrote out my word dinner, and then I went back through my marker and made some of the lines a little thicker to make it look a little more interesting. This, 2 lines and then 4 lines at the end. How easy is that? And it looks fantastic. And then I did colors for the days of the week to make them stand out. And then I just used black over here to make myself organized. So if I couldn't see my words, I would know this is something maybe Asian inspired, definitely a hamburger, definitely breakfast, definitely pizza, definitely a taco, which is the best day of the week for sure. So that's another way I might use my journaling. For me as an art teacher, keeping myself organized with my art ideas, definitely a good thing. So on this, I did the same kind of thing that I did for my dinner. See how I made one part of the letter a little bit bigger, but instead of coloring it in, I used that tiny pen and I made those lines there. And I mixed up my font a little bit to make things stand out. And I didn't center this. I put it off to the side. I made some light bulbs because that's like, boop, idea. And these are some of the ideas that my students have given me for other videos that we could do. So rock sculptures, natural weaving, I'm going to conquer that. It's my nemesis right now, but it's going to happen. A silhouette, this is almost exactly like a silhouette that I ended up making for my kindergarten video. See? Look at that. Zentangle, definitely something I'd like to do. Outer space, I just drew a planet with some meteors maybe. And then down here, books, maybe some authors that I want to read. This helps me stay organized. So maybe instead of having separate note cards, I would have all these in a sketchbook and it would all be in one place to help me stay organized. And then also, don't forget to practice, right? So if I was going to make a to-do list before I even started, maybe I'm practicing with different ways on how to write to do. So if you look at my examples here, again, making those letters and then just adding an extra line. And then this time I colored it in with a different color. This one I did that same technique where I had that tiny, tiny lines and then wrote the word on top of it. Colored and wrote on top with my Sharpie marker. This one I think is probably my favorite. I love that I made the bright colors in the background and then the to-do on top of it. So I tried out a whole bunch of different ones before I settle on one for my to-do list. So if I like this one the best on my paper, then I would think about where I'm going to place it. If I need a list of things to do, would probably be at the top with the list there. If I wanted to do one that looked like this, that was up and down, I could write to do along this edge and then make my list next to it. Either or. I did all of these on note cards because that's what I had. You, if you actually have a journal, you could do it in the journal. Okay, so these are some of the examples that I have, again, on note cards, but if you have a journal, like this is one of my sketchbooks I found when I was cleaning out my studio. It's only got a few pages gone in it, and it's got this really cool string, so it always tells me where the next empty page is. So in this book, I could be using my to-dos and giving myself my to-do list. Plus, it's really cool because it's got a cassette tape on it. And if you don't know what a cassette tape is, go ask your parents or maybe even your grandparents. So next, I'm going to do a little time lapse of me doing a page in my recipe journal. I actually have a book that I think my husband got me where I can write down all my recipes. Now, I have a lot of food allergies, so I'm always looking at recipes and modifying these. So for this one, I'm going to do a banana bread recipe that I actually made this morning, and I want to write it down before I forget all the tweaks and things I did for it. So the next thing I'm going to do is do that little time lapse, okay? And I'll show you at the end how it all turned out. So you can see here, I'm all done with my recipe that I kind of color coded and made it a little easy for me at least to follow along. So I made this yellow because bananas to me are yellow, and wrote banana bread. So when my thing closes up and I have to dig through to find things, I can find that banana bread. And you can see over here, one of the reasons I did this is this page is starting to get a little yucky. I've spilled quite a lot of things on it. So that can go away. Now I have my nice, neat, and tidy, color-coded, sort of journal, doodled recipe. So I made my dry ingredients blue and my wet ingredients green, so when I come down here in the directions, I can find them easily with my color coding. And then down here, I finished off with just a few little tips on I could sprinkle some brown sugar on top and how long my muffins or my loaf would bake. So for me, this is easy to read. You might look at it and say, this isn't easy for me to read. Then you might, if you were gonna do a recipe, do something a little bit different. Just realized I never erased that. So whatever you end up doing with your doodle journal, you could absolutely write a journal entry. Talk about what's been going on at your house, some things that you might want to do, maybe some adventures you want to go on. But no matter what you do, make sure that you're being safe, being kind, and being creative. Definitely send me those pictures of what you're doing if you want to. And I'll see you guys next time, okay?